Call to order the March 18th, 2025 Sidewalk Ad Hoc Committee meeting. And then we can go right to public comment.
Over here?
Yes, we just normal rules of procedure. We give 5 minutes and you state your name and your address before you start.
Very good. Donald Doobie, 94 Oak Ridge. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll try to provide constructive comments, even though I'm a very opinionated person. So I've been at my residence for about 30 years. Within a few months of moving in, I got a nice letter from Public Works reminding me that I was responsible to maintain the sidewalk and clear it in the winter, the snow in the wintertime, and that's fine. So I would go to Home Depot every year, get a bucket of Traro patch and liquid crack filler and do my driveway and the sidewalk at the same time. It cost me maybe $20 a year. 1 hour of effort, no big deal. I did my duty. But I can count on one hand in my entire neighborhood how many people do the same and maintain the sidewalk. There are portions of that sidewalk on Oak Ridge in very bad shape. A few years ago, when the town repaved the street, you also repaved portions of the sidewalk, those in front of the open space. It's about 400 or 500 feet right to my north. It really didn't need that. But there are portions where the trees are uprooting the sidewalk, big gaps, people aren't maintaining them. If I were doing it, I would put the emphasis on the worst of the worst. I mean, I maintain my fence, and that's what I do. Every year I repair portions of the fence, the worst of the worst. So it's something to think about in the future. With regard to snow removal, well, the first 20 years weren't too bad. I have a 8 horsepower Toro snowblower, and I would do my sidewalk. Those big storms where we got 1 to 2 feet, it might take me 4 passes, but I managed okay. No problem. Then the town went to pre-treatment over the last 5-10 years. And within a matter of hours, that snow turns to slush. The snowplow's coming down. I understand they're in a hurry. I understand they got a lot to do. I understand they need the momentum, but they will go 40 to 50 miles an hour. And I know I've been driving for 55 years and throw that slush 8 to 10 feet onto the sidewalk. My snowblower will clog up with slush the first 3 feet. So you say, you got to replace the orge belt, orge being French Canadian for that mechanical device that pushes the snow. So I take it for the City Hardware in Bristol, $50 transportation, $100. First time I use it, clogs up. Let's take this last President's Day snowstorm, which was wicked, right? Everyone admits it. It started out as snow, turned to rain, turned to slush. I got up at 5 a.m. because I wanted to beat the snowplow. I got the sidewalk done. 5 hours later, it turned to slush. That slush got pushed onto my driveway, onto the sidewalk. All I could do, it took me an entire hour, and all I could do was a path the width of a snow shovel. And I'm 70-something years old. It's not the best healthy conditions. And in that snowstorm, I estimate 30 to 40% of my neighbors did not clear the sidewalk because they couldn't handle it. You waited overnight, it turned into a block of ice. You couldn't, it just remained there for 1 to 2 weeks. So my point is this: fine, I understand budgeting, I understand cost benefit, I understand pre-treatment, but if the town's going to continue to pre-treat and push this slush onto the sidewalk and leave it to the residents to clear it, that's not acceptable. Something has to give. Now, there are alternatives. Maybe you can work it into your budget for next year, the town taking responsibility for all the residential sidewalks, or maybe you have a fee for service of some sort, and you can sign up and have the town clear it. There's this little tractor that comes and it clears the sidewalk in front of the open space. And then it gets off at my driveway, goes down the street, bypasses 5 houses, and does this little 30-foot section of open land. You probably know it. A tree fell down there last year, blocking Oak Ridge, and then turns around and comes back. So the marginal effort to just stay on the sidewalk and do those 5 homes and come back can't be all that much. Can't possibly be all that much. So I'd like to, again, try to be constructive. I know there's alternatives. Your alternatives are remain as is, status quo. Town take over the budget for residential or some kind of fee for service, but it is absolutely unacceptable for senior citizens, single women, what have you, to be clearing slush off the sidewalk anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Jean Willett, and I live at 54 Garden Street. In 2018, I was a member of the Farmington Village Committee. I participated in the community charrettes, which fortunately led to the council's acceptance of BSC Group's Streetscape Master Plan for the Farmington Village Center study area in July 2019. While phase 1, the replacement of existing sidewalks along Main Street to CVS has not yet been achieved. Excuse me, my eye jumped. While phase 1, the replacement of existing sidewalks along Main Street was completed, the goal of continuing the sidewalks down both sides of Main Street to CVS has not yet been achieved. I'm excited that the CTDOT plans to replace the bridge at Route 10 and Tuxas Avenue in 2027. This offers us a chance to implement phase 2 of the Streetscape Improvement Master Plan, adding ADA compliant sidewalks on both sides of the new bridge and continuing them to the Route 6 connector, making it safer for pedestrians who would otherwise have to walk in the road or cross this busy street to get to a sidewalk. As we consider installing new sidewalks in Farmington, I would like to share what happened with the sidewalk in front of my home on Garden Street. There is one sidewalk on Garden Street on the west side, running from Route 4 to Meadow Road. Each homeowner is responsible for the portion of the sidewalk that runs through their property. This includes maintenance and clearing snow. When we purchased our home in 2012, the town of Farmington had a lien on the property for an unpaid sidewalk fine. The lien was issued in August 1991 for, quote, repair or replacement of existing sidewalks, end quote, under Town Ordinance 28. The fine was for $738. The homeowner did not want to pay this fine. It is my understanding that she was upset that a tree had been removed by the town, which caused her sidewalk to collapse into the sinkhole created by the tree's absence. The $738 fine accrued interest for 21 years and was finally settled when we closed on the property in 2012, when the town received $2,918.58 from her estate to settle and release the lien. The following spring, we replaced that crumbling sidewalk for just a little under what the town had received. Our cost of replacing the sidewalk was about $2,500. We chose to do an ADA compliant 5-foot sidewalk and have enjoyed it ever since. We love watching our neighbors go by and leave sidewalk chalk out for the kids and the adults, and enjoy seeing artwork and messages in front of our house. With each snowstorm, we plow the sidewalk quickly to ensure safe passage for pedestrians. We do this because we care about our community. However, the neighbors across the street have no responsibility to maintain a sidewalk. They do not have to pay $2,500 to replace it. They do not have to clear snow. And they have no liability if someone is injured. They simply cross the street. As we consider the sidewalk ordinances in Farmington, I hope we keep the word equity in mind. The responsibility and cost should be shared by the community, not by individual property owners. Thank you.
Devin, is there anybody online? Their hands raised?
We have one attendee online, but I don't see a hand raised, but we'll give them another moment here. Okay, I think we're all set.
Want to correspondence, the email we all received?
Yep, so we actually did not receive it. I don't know if you guys received it. I didn't receive it, but I think it's irrelevant. This has to do, I think, in general with what Sarah was talking about with phase 2 of the Gateway project, about taking the sidewalks down to CVS. Also, there was a lot of other enhancements that came along with phase 2 of what the Gateway Committee had come up with.
Mhm.
So I think that in summary, Brian, you.
This really covers it, yeah.
Yeah, I actually took some time today and I went through the old reports and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And it was basically how it ended was that, and it's in our goals now, it was saying when the town was determining what they were going to do with the Parsons property, they were gonna look then on potentially doing phase 2 of the report.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like what it ended in the presentation that I pulled out today. So-
Okay,
So just for my own clarification, because I wasn't around when
Yeah.
that happened. So we did the study, and then the project was broken up into 2 phases. That as the town, we committed to phase 1,
Yes,
but we had yet to take action on phase 2. So phase 2 is not something that we have said we are doing.
we accepted the report.
Yeah.
We accepted the report, and then what it looks like when you look at the history, they did phase 1, and that was the sidewalks and part of the grants and some of the different things. And there were other things in the report. There's crosswalks, there's some different things.
Mm.
And then it said, one of the things that we were grappling with is what we were going to do with the Parsons property. So if you go back in these things, Parsons property at one time was going to be economic development with things on it. Then this committee that we had basically said we were going to do modified open space at the Parsons
Yeah.
property. And now we're coming into your guys'
And then
turn.
there's all.
And then we had all the different things and then the Historic Society was going to have the property there. And in our goals today, it says, you know, if we're going to go back onto the Parsons property, what we're going to do, and if we're going to start developing it as modified open space, and it's a priority 2 in the goals.
Mm.
In the reports before that, it basically said that when we established a new Parsons committee, that group should start looking at that phase 2 of the original Gateway report.
Okay.
That's how it was left.
could you clarify something for me? And then, because as you know, I was on that
Yeah,
committee.
yeah.
And I know we weren't able to do the bridge component, which we're talking about here
Yeah.
today, which is, how we can do both sides if we're putting in a new bridge.
Yeah.
But the original goal was to have a sidewalk go all the way to CVS. Do we have a sidewalk all the way on the west side? I don't know that it's completely 100% on the west side,
It gets
so we never quite made it.
No,
I think
what the
phase
goal
1
was.
was to where it is now.
no,
Is it?
yeah,
Okay.
that was where it was supposed to go.
Okay, I thought it was supposed to go to CVS, but.
We have like both sides to the light at Meadow Road, or is that Meadow Road? Yeah, Meadow Road.
Yeah, the
And then we have
intersection.
one side going down to the condos over there. Well,
Right.
Yeah.
That was phase 2. The condo side was phase 2, I
Yeah,
believe.
so there is on one side, gets you like past Birch Hill.
I get you to Tungus Street, I believe, and then there's where the complex is.
Right.
That we don't have any sidewalks there, and we don't have any going by the Citgo station, I don't believe. And then there's a small patch where the new buildings went in, so it's kind of patchwork to CVS. So you're still walking in the road to some components.
Yeah.
100, yeah, definitely.
Russ,
Yeah.
Russ, if you can you tell us how far
Is
the
that
sidewalks
accurate?
go?
Stop at, because by the new building that was constructed where the old, Irish gift store is.
Right.
But east of there's no more sidewalk until.
Yeah.
Scott's Walk.
And when we did the sidewalks, when we repaired the sidewalks, We repaired up to, and then we only did a very small portion of the new sidewalk, correct? When we did our sidewalk project, we repaired our side, Highland Mark, yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the section where the old ad agency is, where the health center is, that building, there's no sidewalk there, is there? I didn't think so, and I believe when they, right, I believe when they purchased the property, it was part of the deal. They were supposed to put in a sidewalk, and I don't believe it's ever gone in, and they were kind of waiting for us to put the sidewalk in so it could all be done at the same time. You might want to check with Rose, but I believe that
Yeah,
would,
I think that's.
I
that
think
sounds
that's
familiar.
accurate.
Yeah,
so I'm thinking, as we look at this, if we could have that a part of the component to kind of finish that, it would be nice and off our plates.
right,
And I know that that's just one of the things we might want to look at.
right. But Russ, just remind me again, with our existing Main Street sidewalk project, the phase one was to repair the sidewalks. And so we repaired the sidewalks that was what we used part of the grant for. We repaired it. And then there was a small portion, right, that we actually built a new sidewalk, or no?
Side added about 100 feet, 140 feet roughly from where it ended to get to the new Main Street, main gate road.
Right.
development.
And
We added a new section in there. Part of that project.
right. And so
Right.
all phase two was actually now putting new sidewalks in. There
Right.
was other things that went with it, but it's all piecemeal to, like, certain businesses have it. And it was the intent, I think, was to eventually get to the CVS
Okay,
and do that. But the phase one was really a replacement project.
okay,
Phase two was
new.
a new, and then also part of phase two in this master plan that was done, there was various enhancements that were gonna go along with it. So
sure.
our money, in my understanding, if I remember correctly, it was really to be a replacement, get the sidewalks, we got a grant, and we were gonna repair the sidewalks were there. And that was what the intent was. Phase two was now when the Parsons property, depending on what was going on there, it was recommended that this new committee that was Parsons take and look at phase two, there's all these other things, and decide what the town wanted to do with that, if they were
Okay.
gonna do it. That's my
Okay. So
understanding.
it's just a replacement. We didn't do any of the new.
Except one little section we did because of that subdivision. We
Right.
wanted to connect to that subdivision,
Right.
so we did that.
Right.
And
And
so-
so it's part of that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And this, whoever wrote this is very accurate
Oh,
of
yeah.
what went on.
Absolutely.
You know, this is accurate.
But I think what we're doing here is a even larger than this, because this really focuses on the village.
Yes.
And we're looking at the entire town
Yes, exactly.
and the rules and the laws
Yeah.
and really what the need is.
Right,
As
exactly.
much as this really benefits a good section of our historic district, which is wonderful.
Right.
And necessary. So I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, and I think. Given that there's a number of things in the charge of the committee that are supposed to get done, I think something that might be useful is to try to prioritize, where we should go first, meaning,
Absolutely.
as we talked at the council meeting recently, if we send out a survey asking about sidewalk interest, it's really gonna feel like a sidewalk building project is eminent if that's what people want. But part of the charge is also the repair and replacement of sidewalks and how we're gonna handle that. And so, Kathy, you had said that you looked into the ordinances
Yeah.
locally.
Yep, and that's, if we wanna maybe keep on moving.
Yeah.
We have that on there.
Sure.
Because the hardest thing about this committee is, some people, the issue, as we saw tonight, we had two public comment. One was about new sidewalk, one was about replacing sidewalk. And it's like to you have to be able to walk and chew gum and all that stuff, but you kind of have to put them in a compartment and figure one out before you can do the other.
And the equity component.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
All right. So do you guys want to approve the minutes from January
Make a motion
28th?
to approve the minutes from the January 28th ad hoc committee meeting.
Yep.
Good?
I second,
Oh,
I second.
oh, sorry. All in favor?
The approval.
Good, we're good.
So for what you were just talking about, so review information from the staff. So at the last meeting, the town staff indicated they begin researching following information. So other town sidewalk ordinances, why don't we start there? So I think there's a chart in here, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So we went through and we looked at Farmington, Avon, Bloomfield, Bristol, Canton, Ellington, Glastonbury, New Britain, Newington, Simsbury, Southington, West Hartford, and Weathersfield. And it looks like, other than West Hartford, every one of these communities, their sidewalk ordinances are like ours. And basically, when you read them, they're so similar and they're all like mud. They all were written the same way and they all are the same. They're overly complicated and they read the same way. So I don't know back when these ordinances were written, whether CCM or some agency came out and said, this is what a sidewalk ordinance should look like. And they all look the same. So they're all in general, except for West Hartford, is that the responsibility of the sidewalk to snowplow it is in the responsibility of the person whose house it abuts. The responsibility to maintain the sidewalk and like fix it is the responsibility of the person that's home is in front of it. The liability, all that is the same. And there's a couple of things that were just a little bit not different, but what we don't do, but which I thought was kind of interesting. The fines are very similar. The leaning of the property, and as Sarah had said, is that, and I've talked about it, is that back in the day, there was a much more aggressive program on repairing people's sidewalks. And that was back in 1991. And you got a letter of saying that and I've talked about that we've had letters and residents loved it. It was a
Very popular program.
a real popular program. And people had to repair their sidewalk and we leaned property and we did those types of things. And almost all these communities, it's the same sort of thing. A couple of the communities had what I thought was kind of interesting and not a bad idea, is that they had almost like a financial aid, that if you fill out a form and that if you don't have the means to fix your sidewalk, there's some kind of, criteria that you could apply for to do that. And then, it's a financial aid type of thing based on income and some different things. A town has that, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. But what I think and I think I'm kind of skipping a little bit, but if you can see, and I think it's here, we wrote an ordinance, wrote a follow-up, because my gut instinct is that I really want to know what the towns, how they actually do it.
That's what my next question was.
And if you look what my memo says, is that, does towns enforce a repair of ordinances? They have to be like us. It's hugely time consuming to inspect all these sidewalks. And how do they do it? And I'm sure the residents don't like it in Weathersfield, they don't, it's the same thing. And so is there a program that another community is doing? If we were going to continue down the same road of this ordinance, is there a program that a community is doing that we should be looking at to see how they do it? My gut instinct is that everyone does it the same way we do. It's
my guess too, but I'm just wondering if there's somebody that, if, for instance, Weathersfield, do they have is there a dedicated person or is it carved into somebody's job? And then how are they going about doing that?
yeah.
Are we waiting to hear from people complain that they can't pass the property?
Yeah. Is there a formal program in place where there's a regular inspections that take place? How does the town notify people when they have to do it? How often are you doing it? Are you making a repair? All the towns have the exact same ordinance. So how are they actually implementing it? And like what's happening? So we are doing a follow-up to all these towns, but I would say that and we're actually talking to West Hartford, because West Hartford, they, in their ordinance, repair sidewalks. They repair it. But if you go in West Hartford sidewalks and their repairs, they're all done differently. So my instinct would be there's something different about that too, because that doesn't seem to make sense, that if the town is repairing everyone's sidewalk, why is every sidewalk when they're being repaired being done differently? Even though it's a mix match. I don't know. And maybe West Hartford has something that they say to the owner, repair your sidewalk and we'll give you you know, repair it and we'll pay or something like that. Who knows? But
Mm.
you would think that when they repair the sidewalk, it would be a consistent type of thing, and it's not.
Mm.
It's not. So, or maybe they only do it in the main street, like in the West Hartford Center. And so we're gonna follow up with them too, because I walk on the West Hartford sidewalks all the time, and there's a lot of sidewalks that I wouldn't say are in terrible, terrible condition, but they're definitely sidewalks that need repair, and there's definitely sidewalks that are repaired in all different ways, different materials, different ways, different things.
Was Harper plows through their sidewalk?
The residents have,
So
residents,
all the
yeah.
parts still-
the resident does that. But I actually thought that the different towns were gonna have different ordinances.
Yeah.
So we looked at that, and then we're doing a follow-up to see what actually, how they do it. I think that's an important piece, that see if we're missing anything, or are we really gonna be recreating something completely different? You know, there's a lot, we've talked about it here, that is it fair that because you have a sidewalk in front of your house, you're paying for it and the people across the street are walking on it and that
Yeah.
type of thing. And it's, that's how it's like in every town, that's how it's done. But is that really right? I don't, is that, again, there's a question about
There
that,
is a question, sure.
about that. And then Russ was able to, and that Russ, maybe want to show it. Did we have it? Devin has it, but Russ was able to show the portions of town that have sidewalks. And I don't know, do you want to, do we
Move down there.
want to move down there? We can look at it.
I got it.
Exactly. So Russ, maybe you can just show us here what you were able to do. So we have the public sidewalks, concrete sidewalks, town owned, and different things like that. So Russ, maybe run these guys through this.
Yeah.
You're interested in looking, look over my shoulder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we share the same sidewalk issue. Okay, scale, but.
It's all the sidewalk that you see there on about $18 million.
And
Again, that's all the side, the whole
That's
Yeah.
existing.
whether they need to be repaired or not.
Well,
Just-
do the worst.
The worst case scenario, is you've got to replace all, we have 48 miles of sidewalk.
Yeah, so Russ, walk through that when you talk to me. So we have, what did we say? It's 1/3 of the town, or
About 30.
a third of the town is, a little over the third of the town has sidewalks. The town sidewalks are how many? 4. So the town actually only owns a little bit of sidewalks, and the rest of them are the ones privately owned.
It
Obviously,
just doesn't trail.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't include Meadow Road, that's why. That's all.
and it obviously looks like, this side of town over here has more of the sidewalks. Over here, which makes sense, has no sidewalks.
Up on-
Now,
New residential area.
Yeah. Surprisingly, like when this was all developed, you would kind of think that there would have been some sidewalks here, but there's no sidewalks in here. Okay,
Teardrop on it, that's Garden Gate.
Oh, yeah.
That has a
sidewalk, yeah.
But those other.
Yeah, so
Reporting.
So, yeah, so the point would be that the older the subdivision, they're probably, that's why they didn't have a sidewalk. Or up here where there's just too much land. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
And back in the day, fewer houses. up there.
Right.
Larger parts projects, the 2 acre farm, so there wasn't,
You don't have the rails on here.
it's not high.
Oh.
Which is interesting because we were talking about it today, Russ, and I like, again, looking at the map, and you know me, I always have my maps backwards, is that it's interesting. The rails to trails is on this side where there's all the sidewalks on this side, you know? So when we populated, yeah.
Among our town centers also is well.
And one thing we can do, and obviously when we keep on talking, we can build off of this map.
Okay.
You know, it's not, thanks to Russ and your staff for doing
Yeah,
it,
thanks,
putting this
Russ.
all together, but you know, a lot of things that we've talked about is about connecting sidewalks to the rails to trails and different things. We can kind of build off this map of information that we want to look at.
Kathy, is it possible to get a PDF of that?
Yeah, can we get a PDF of that?
Because I didn't retain anything.
I'll get that for you, Brian.
Thank you.
So the cost for various sidewalk programs, obtain pricing from other sound sidewalk programs and need further information. So we're in the process of that, trying to, like I said, send an email out to try to figure out what other towns do, what the price is. Russ was able to put that together, and that's about as far as we have gotten with the information.
Okay. So I guess for me is, like I was saying before, you know, do we need to, if we put this in the buckets versus new stuff versus existing stuff, I think the first thing that needs to be decided is how we want to go about the repair ordinance. And so I don't know if that's as simple as us starting with what our feelings on that are, or
I think one piece of information we don't have is that how many of those sidewalks that we have, how bad of condition they are.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have an intern coming in tomorrow, but you know, Russ and I have talked about it. I mean, it's a staffing thing, but I don't know if it's something along the lines where, you know, to me, a simple person, like, do we rate them A, B, C, D, you know?
Have a criteria.
Criteria, and I have an intern or someone that goes around and we have the map and they look at the sidewalk and in, again, general terms, gives us a rating on what the sidewalk looks like.
I'm not trying to be a suck up, but you know, I walk my dog quite a bit. I will go around at least the areas, the dense area in District 2. I will
Yeah.
take pictures and I can come back with some
Yeah.
feedback for the next meeting too. Like I can, you know, we did 4 miles today. So I'll just start picking different streets and doing those walks.
I think the important thing that's great because if people are out, but consistency among the, like,
Yeah.
having some sort of criteria
I was
of
gonna ask if
this
Russ
looks like
had
an
one.
A or a B, or
Yeah.
it's a little subjective.
To me, it's if there's a break in the sidewalk,
Yeah.
a divot in the sidewalk, you know, or a raised thing in the sidewalk over a certain amount, but 3/4 of an inch raised, and then is that 3/4 of an inch separate in a crack too?
elevation change of more than 3/4 of an inch, doesn't mean ADA compliant.
We can supply you with a ruler.
Yeah.
No, I want to go around, I'm gonna, yeah, this is gonna be really good for my public image too. Um,
The thing is, like, 3/4 of an inch is ADA,
Yeah,
but have you ever tried to slide something that is a 1/4 inch? You know, if you're sliding something along the floor or something.
now, if you're on like,
Yeah.
It's gonna get, you're gonna break your wrist.
yeah, if you're on a skateboard and you hit it like a half an inch thing, you're gonna go flying.
Exactly. But ADA is 3/4 of it.
So, you know, because like, for instance, Mr. Doobie, like I'll do Oak Ridge this week and I'll just check it out. And so but if I was to go out, so it's any crack, elevation change of 3/4 of an inch.
See a lot of these old blacktop sidewalks, they have little softball holes.
Yeah,
Settle.
Yeah, I think,
Tree roots.
Today, they have sidewalk and ADA compliant, has to be 5 feet wide.
and I think though,
Pretty much all the sidewalk is 4
Yeah.
That was our standard.
and I think we have to kind of, I think like getting an idea, because I keep on forgetting when we talk about it. These sidewalks are the homeowner's responsibility and liability.
Yeah.
And so again, you know, for a town to come in and say, okay, we're gonna force you to do your sidewalk at a C. Their risk level may be like, listen, there's barely anyone that walks on it. I'm willing to let people walk on it at a C. We typically, when we used to do programs, you're talking about sidewalks that were Ds or Fs, and you're also talking about doing things where you're communicating to people, hey, remember, your sidewalk is in really terrible shape, and if someone trips on it,
yeah.
you're gonna get sued, and it's gonna cost you the money to do it. And so I think in some ways, some kind of education about that is sort of an important component.
Well, that's why I think even, again, well, I thought it made sense to pause that flyer
Yeah.
or whatever communication we sent out, because we can do that all in one shot. If we're
Right.
sending out a big communication, we can say like, these are the things you need to know. We are, you know, as we are hyper-focused on, as we are potentially focused on adding new sidewalk, we're also hyper-focused on making sure what we have is good, and these are the rules.
Right.
And they're, you know, whatever. The other thing I want to circle back to is you said something about, because I know if somebody, if a group of people petitioned you for a new sidewalk and you
Yeah.
thought it made sense and they were going to pay for it.
Yeah.
There is a program where we finance that.
We could basically, the council can set up various things. You could put the sidewalk in and charge people a certain amount and lien all their properties, or you could give them low interest loans.
Yeah.
You could do various things to make it easier for it.
'Cause I do think a program like that, if we go full gas on repairs and communication people, I do think that would be a good program to have, so people don't feel as though we're, you know, there's a gun to their head to
Right.
come up with a number right away.
Right. And you could do different things. The town could pay a portion of it if it felt like there was a community benefit that goes through it. And that's like I talked about it before, kind of what we did with the sewer ordinance about when people are connecting to sewers and you're adding new sewers. And is it really fair that when you developed a town, and we did this whole study, is that when you developed back in the 60s or 70s or whenever you were developing, there were so many federal grants and people got sewers because the grants were there and we sewered the community. Now all of a sudden people want a sewer and it cost a ton of money to put a sewer in, and it's run the same way. You assess them. And we did a whole program that said, what do we consider like reasonable? And they keep on bumping up the rate. But if you're going to put a sewer in, the town is subsidizing a certain portion of it. You're still paying like $10,000. I think when we did it was $10,000, and you could do $1,000 for 10 years. And we can, you could do different things. So there's creative ways to do it. But I think when you go out the new stuff, and then one of the things about how many of our sidewalks are Ds and Fs, not ours, community-wide. And I think that's a big difference if you have, out of that 33% of our sidewalks, you have 5% Ds and Fs, because people are basically, they're fine. You're never going to have your sidewalks, you want Ds and Fs. That's a little bit different than having the majority of those sidewalks in really bad shape. And if that's the case, I think that's a whole different position, and again, if you're going to buy into that, you're going to keep the ordinance the same, you're just going to enforce it and try to get people to repair their sidewalks. We just haven't even asked people to do it.
Yeah.
And that's different if you have 5%, you give them a year to do it, you market it out, you warn them, you say, listen, you should look at your sidewalk, and if it's in bad shape, we're gonna do a sidewalk inspection in the next year. And try to market it and try to get people to do their sidewalks.
Awareness, yeah.
You know, I think that's a whole approach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't be fair for us to dig up a rule, you know, it is a rule, but yeah, that one has been very loosely enforced for the last few decades, so to then start bombarding everybody without any kind of a heads up, so I agree, the only reason I think that our current ordinance, it's just, we haven't found anybody that does it better yet. So that's what makes me think that our current ordinance, maybe, it doesn't mean that, oh, stop thinking, nobody else has come up with a better thought, but there's a lot of towns, including a very sidewalk progressive town like West Hartford, that's doing a lot of their, it seems like their repair isn't necessarily uniform as it's supposed to be. The removal is still on the homeowner, and I assume that means that the insurance for slip and fall is on it. So a lot of those themes seem to kind of,
I'm 90% sure when all the town, not West Hartford, but these towns that are similar to ours are gonna say that they're doing it the exact, they're not doing it, or it's only on, you know, really, really serious sidewalks
F.
that, Fs, or they're in situations where they're really like in, I keep on saying Weathersfield, but like in old Weathersfield, where people are, Mr. Arnold? Yeah, no, you go.
So we just sort of clear, we haven't just abandoned sidewalk inspection at all. Somebody calls, we'll go out, take a look at it. Send letters out.
Yeah.
To the musical center. We send letters out, we go and take pictures and do that. As Kathy talked about before, we're not doing it town-wide.
Yeah.
Because of they cost money.
yeah, I'm sure if you were at a job and you saw something that was highlighted and terrible, and then something would be done about it. Yeah, we haven't closed our eyes to it. And things like, you know, we try to be very good about Plainville Avenue, right, with New Horizons and the amount of traffic that gets, and making sure that it's there for everybody. So yeah, I agree. I think that's fair to say that we're not.
Yeah, I just want people to know, like, we aren't just, you know, like, hey, we know there's a problem, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Not acting. Somebody complains there's a problem, we'll go work with them, we talk to them, a couple people. Hey, is this thing okay? But yeah, it's not great, and we try to work with the homeowner, say, hey, this is something you can do, here's the problem, we have that discussion.
Try to get them to repair it.
Repair it. But no matter, it always seems to come, these sidewalk issues and complaints tend to come when we are at a time in where we're high interest rates, not a great economy, not a lot of extra money, not a lot of extra cash, and that's when a lot of the complaints. And it's a cycle, right? It works that way.
And it's, yeah.
It's just how it is.
And I think it's still very interesting though, is because you really, the repairs, I mean, there's definitely, I know that up in that Oak Ridge neighborhood, there's some bad sidewalks up
He's right
there.
about that.
And there's some bad sidewalks. There's some bad sidewalks around the
That sidewalk.
places. Yeah, there's definitely some bad sidewalks. But the thing is, I mean, we get complaints and not a ton, but where we do get requests for a lot is more about installing new sidewalks. That it's not about the repairs all the time. It's about the new sidewalks. And usually that dies out once they find out that they have to pay for the new sidewalk. But
Yeah.
we do.
What I do. You don't get a lot of calls for service to get from Highland Park to CVS. We get a handful. We get a lot more requests to get from Union Center to Farm Center to Washington. That is probably one of the bigger requested areas because there's a lot of gaps in there. And you're on Route 4. Not that Route 10 is any different, but that's the connection people want to see. The majority of the calls we get on sidewalks, besides complaining, when I say majority calls, if we get 20 calls a year, 12 of them are for Route 4. The other ones are various issues throughout town. A couple are What are you doing? Where's phase 2 or Route 10? That type of thing. So if you look at something and just say, oh, we gotta do from Highland Park to CVS. That's the biggest issue in town. It really is. I mean, it's one of the issues. So I think the majority of the complaints comes from having that disconnect from the two sides.
Right. And then I also think that one of the things is that, and you look at it, there's a lot of stuff in our sidewalks and different things that is, I think that it's solid. There's solid policy, it's solid stuff. But the problem is that we don't have kind of a policy off what the ordinance is. Like, how do we, like, and I think we've been doing, like, we did our 2 village centers, which makes sense to do that, you know, and we got grants to do it. But who told us to do that versus something else? Like, what is the overarching policy there? And it makes sense, you're doing your centers and you had grants that did it, but where did it say that anywhere? And so that's where I struggle with some of that. Now, we're doing a grant on down the Meadow Road, we got a grant, which if you look on that, it's a perfect place to do it because it connects a whole neighborhood into a trail system. And really, when you look around all the other things, there's not too many that are like that. And it's a perfect grant to apply for. And again, though, but why did that one get picked? And that to me is part of what I would like to see. Maybe we don't make so many of these changes, but at least have some guidelines that we're following collectively as a group. You know, and we have a lot of institutional knowledge here that why we did things the way we did. And I think it makes sense, but there's no documentation that show why we
No
did it.
policy.
No
Well,
policy.
it's sort of
on it.
like TPD with their plan of conservation development, where you could look at,
Yeah.
this is what the roadmap for development in town was for the next 20 years. So
Right.
just have something like that for sidewalk.
And then like, even just again, I can appreciate a lot of the different things because there's not equity, there's not this, there's so many different components, but does it, like what Don was saying, and this is on Meadow Road, does it make sense? Like, how do you justify common sense that we own a piece of property in between sidewalks and our sidewalk is there and our plow goes and then we stop, we get off the road, go down the road, and then get on the sidewalk again and go again. I mean, logically, that doesn't make any sense, but who made that determination that those people don't have to plow their sidewalks anymore when everyone else has to do it? Right, the ordinance says they have to do it.
That damage in $2,500 sidewalk. You're coming to me going, hey, your plow did it,
Right,
right? But listen, I am not arguing against you.
right,
I'm just saying, like, here's the reality of it.
Yeah,
If I'm going on everyone's sidewalk, guess what they're gonna say?
Yeah.
You damaged it
Right.
because you plowed it. I'm not fixing it.
Yeah.
And the poor woman who had the tree removed, we removed the tree at 54 Garden Street. They took the tree out, it settled and damaged her sidewalk. And as I sit here with my residential hat on, I don't blame her for not paying that, wanting to pay that.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make sense. If that tree, knowing Garden Street the way I know Garden Street, the tree was adjacent to the sidewalk. Because there's no room. You have the curb, about a 1-foot grass strip, a 3.5-foot sidewalk, and there's probably a tree either in the strip or behind the walk. It's settled. They took the tree probably died. They cut the tree, pulled the stump, and everything settled in. So who did that?
right,
The big bad town.
Yeah. Right.
Who caused the settlement?
1991. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the logic.
Right.
Tree was in our right of way. Result of that tree having to come down because it was a hazardous tree, damaged the sidewalk.
Yeah, and it's like, when you're Mr. Doobie, you're sitting there watching the guy use the same amount of gas to go the same distance to not do his driveway. You know, it feels like that beautiful town of Farmington logo giving him a finger almost, you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, have fun. So,
Yeah.
but you'd almost need him to, no, but you'd almost need him to sign a waiver, right? You need to say, like, we will drive through your house because it's an area of opportunity where, you know, you're 5 houses away from another chunk of town land. you have to sign a waiver that says that if something happens to your mailbox, your yard, your whatever, it's on you.
Right, and these are things, like you said, where you just want to use some common sense about these different things, but you also have to look at like the equity, and is it because we just happen to have a piece of open space that's right next to in the middle of it, and we're bringing our
We need that, I as a developer, we don't need so much open space out of that subdivision, right, out of my project. Here's a strip. Get 4 lots, here's a strip, right? I'm not gonna maintain that 10-foot strip, right? But that was part of the TPZ reg. I have to get a pop, and guess where? Guess where that 10-foot strip is, and I'm using a fictitious link here. But that's where the brook crosses there, that's where the wetlands is. There's some reason why it wasn't developed, and it's usually because there's wetlands and wet, and you can't do it anyway, or it's not. So it's part of the whole process, right? But you can't sit here and you're not gonna tell me I can't develop 3 lots without giving you, I'm meeting the requirement by giving you these strips of land that happen to go up the road that you have to maintain that strip aside.
Right. And I think, again, a perfect example, we have not done a grant for creating new sidewalks. And this Meadow Road one is going to be interesting, because the Meadow Road one, you have to have, according to the ordinance, you have to have public hearings. The budding property owners have to agree that they want the sidewalk there. They have to snow plow it. They have to do that. And this one, of course, we have huge parts of open space in the middle of it. And
Yeah,
so
in between
multiple homes. And so again, in theory, you say, okay, maybe this is a good example, because it is a lot and you get a waiver, and we do snow plow that part of it, but we're getting a grant. But how do you justify that? And there's no policy to it. And so we say, let's apply for grants to put sidewalks in, but we don't have any policies that backtrack it. And so there's, again, it keeps on going every time we have these meetings. There's so many nuances. It's,
Morocco, but there's a lot more.
but I mean, to me, I think what are a couple of our next steps is, I think we should find out what the other towns do about their repairs. Do they run programs, and what they actually do? I think we need to find out how many sidewalks are really in terrible condition. I think we need to get a grasp on that.
That's item 2, yeah.
On what we do with that, those 2 things.
Mhm.
And then I think the other thing is that I think we need to prepare, in general, a simple narrative, either that's going into a newsletter or a PowerPoint presentation that explains what the sidewalk ordinance is, what it is today. I think people don't understand it.
as like a baseline to educate
Educate people,
people
yeah.
about, this
Yeah.
is, as it stands right now, this is our sidewalk ordinance.
Yeah, did you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
I think those are the next steps.
What happens if at that public hearing, then you get 3 property owners on Meadow Road that say, I don't want a sidewalk?
I don't know. We can see, and this is the other thing that's interesting,
You can-
is that we can force it. We can force it by law.
And is that the right thing to do?
Connecting the trail, the school, the neighborhood.
Yeah. And back. Yeah, and back in the day, let me tell you, we have some wonky sidewalks near our schools because of exactly that. Is because people didn't want it, and the greater good was that we're going to put a sidewalk in, and we fought, like you're talking, they tell a story about one of the people down there about snow plowing one of the sidewalks, and the highway guy and the neighbor laying across the
Geez.
road, and because of the sidewalk, and then us putting the sidewalk on our property, then paying them and moving it back, and a lot.
There's there's that West District Road, the 2 camel humps there just before the school.
Mhm.
It's just the weirdest thing. You have to like
It's
dart uphill, and then there's there's some ingrown roots there or whatever else.
I mean, but again, it was sort of, now you really want this neighborhood. That's why we applied to get on the trail system and all of
Yeah.
it for the greater good. And, do we, you know, and I think it seems we're gonna have meetings with the neighborhood to see how it goes, Russ.
We as in Russ.
So craft a narrative, find out what other towns are doing, and then we're gonna stick an intern on some sidewalk inspection, and I will do my own amateur sleuthing with my dog.
Yeah,
Commit to at least 20 streets before we.
I'll do the first district, you do the second.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
hey, isn't it during some kind of season? Doesn't people walk this entire town? Maybe I give everyone an assignment.
Yeah.
If you knock on doors-
Sidewalk, some of these neighborhoods.
Yeah, if you made everybody who wants to campaign for town council next time. have
Here's
to-
your
yeah,
packet of sidewalk inspection.
By the way, I've rated your
We could
sidewalk.
get some body cams.
Your,
That'll go very well, yeah.
your sidewalk's an F and it cost you $10,000.
I'm not an expert, but it looks like about 10 grand. I could please have your support. Or-
Vote for me.
Yeah, so that's, I think, agenda item E, kind of like where we are.
Okay.
And then F, just kind of going back to the charge, review the existing sidewalk ordinances in other towns. We're doing that.
Yep.
Determine what percentage of the town currently has sidewalks. We're doing that.
Mhm.
Educate the community on the current ordinance and process. So that I
That's the
think is
narrative.
where we are now, trying to get the narrative and trying to do that. And then hold public hearings, and we're not doing the survey this time, but I think there's plenty that when we're looking at the repairs and things like that. I think the question is, are we gonna go back to our ordinance and try to get people to repair their sidewalks, or are we gonna try to establish our own sidewalk programs? And
I think the things would be, we're doing this stuff with the ordinance and
Yeah.
how we want to enforce that and how
Yeah.
bad the sidewalks are currently. And then to what you were saying before about having, if we're going to propose a sidewalk program, if,
yeah,
then we should have a plan. We should create that plan. So
Yeah.
first is the plan, how we want to deal with the repair stuff, and then we go into what the plan is for the new stuff.
Development, new
Yeah.
stuff.
right.
new stuff,
And of
yeah.
course, it's money.
Yeah.
Lot of money, but again, what is the plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
And down the road, checking with people to see what their temperature is for that.
right,
Wonder if
I can catch that question.
Tell us.
temperature for what, new or for? Yeah.
Going out. Don't have a lot of food from gas burn.
Yeah.
So to sit here and say, we can send questions out and do everything. But people want sidewalk as long as they don't have to pay for it or maintain it. Very simple.
Yeah, that's why I think when that question comes through in a survey, if we were to do that, it needs to
Mm.
be at a estimated cost of X amount of $1,000. Would you want a sidewalk? Would you want a new sidewalk in front of your home?
Right.
And
That said too, you gotta. We're gonna peel the onion a little bit. As, Sarah.
Yeah.
You say we want sidewalks on both sides of the bridge. And that sounds. Can't put them on the east side. On the. Opposite Highland Park. Across the street. Because of the grade. Too much grade there. Elevation. As you start going towards the apartments, the slope comes down too steep and you need to put a retaining wall in. And it creates more cost, right? So your slope, you have a slope like this, and you're trying to cut a sidewalk through it, I need to put a retaining wall in. So that's the difficult, that's, then where the bridge is, keeping that thing tight. Falls off, it slopes off, so we go from a slope down to a slope up in a short period of distance, so we can't put a sidewalk on that side. So we can send a survey out, but in the mountain, Tame Mountain Road. The side yards are too steep, that just won't accommodate
yeah,
a typical standard sidewalk. If there was no sidewalk in front of the high school here, it's an imaginary situation. And we could put a sidewalk in, it's fine. But if the grade comes up so steep, there's parts of the road, River Road, the grade goes up and down, and you just can't, you use your example on the West District, they talked to one of the property owners. I go, I'll cut it back, I'll put a retaining wall in, we'll cut that thing, we'll go straight, so you don't have those. No, I like that. I see, I pull up and nobody really can see him.
Yeah.
They don't, people don't want a lot of change to their property.
No, he's been there for a long time too, yeah.
So it just seems that,
There's a ton of nuances.
I guess I'm trying to be proactively trying to save a little on my backside, but
Mm.
I don't know how we do that if we're gonna send out a blanket survey.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna go, yeah, I want that sidewalk. And I guess you'll have to tell them we can't give you one.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
I also, well, that's why I also think, again, you know, we had this long discussion about that mailer, you know, at our last budget meeting, and I do think that you can't send that out until you're prepared to have some sort of action on the other end of it.
Exactly.
And so if we are not really buttoned up with how we would react to the reaction,
Yeah, not at all.
then all we're doing is asking to have more consternation about this issue. Yeah, so.
Unfortunately, it's one of those topics that unless you're willing to fund it. And that's, so let's, it's not, it really can't go far. Because go back to your example, if I go and plow her drive or sidewalk, and now if I'm plowing it, what is the expectation? That I'm gonna plow it and salt it like I would a road, so if somebody falls on it, the town is, and I say me, I mean the town. If somebody slips and falls on a privately owned sidewalk, we have to change, our ordinance has to say something, you know, to protect everybody, including the homeowner, that the sidewalk passes in front of. So we really gotta look at this thing holistically, and like, this ordinance has to be addressed. Right, and we have to, what's the flavor of everybody's opinion, that what are we really gonna do when this comes to fruition? Right, like, back to what you're saying. We have to be ready to answer that. So this $18 million is just the purely replacement cost. That doesn't include people who watch the work, oversee the work, determine the work, the schedule. Because this is taken on, you know, this could be an animal all its own, where I could have literally 2 or 3 people working on just sidewalks all year round, coming up with a plan, and it's like our paving program,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly like
sidewalk program. It's just that big of an animal.
Right. And then you have to also look again of like community good, okay? Because only a third. And again, the people that live up in that section of town that has no sidewalks, do they really want to pay when they say you have $17 million? Would they rather have something in the school system? Would they rather have more roads, a new plow truck? Would they rather have roads being done? And I think, again, that's why everyone's ordinance is like this, is because it said in there that if you think that there is a public good and that it goes to a school, or now it's like us going to a trail, they one-off it and they say, okay, the town can do that. And I think like we're almost in some ways like not having to create the wheel again. I think this ordinance was written like this, like mud, because this is mud and this is the best way to try to do it. Because again, is it like just recently, is it fair that we're repairing someone's sidewalk or going to do it when someone just recently did their sidewalk because they did it, and people get very, very angry about that, very angry.
People could spend $40,000 on septic. Now, we have the neighbor next door doesn't want to spend it on septic, they want to put it on the sewer. Well, what about that for, you know, we have to make it, would be a special exception that if you repair it in so many years, that's so good. You don't have to connect to the sewer and you would defer everything, so it's the same situation. But now you have, you just replace your sidewalk is blacktop by tools, right? That's hard. Not concrete, so then we come in and we do concrete, but now because you just did your sidewalk and asphalt, well, we're gonna leave it. We're back to what your situation is, Cap, about, hey, this thing was repaired to concrete, this one's the blacktop, this one's, and now you're gonna have that mismatch of different materials.
I think we'll allow it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I remember when we did the Main Street project, there was a problem at Porter Road and Main, heading south, and Porter's did an asphalt job like a year before you came in and did the concrete. job.
Right. Yeah,
Probably because of liability, and they didn't want
Yeah.
to deal with it. On Garden Street, after we put in our sidewalks, not knowing any better, we just did asphalt. The condos next to us put in concrete because they had a sense that that's the best way to go.
Yeah. right. And again, I'm not saying you per thing, but do people really care? And again, this is like what the material is. Do they care that it looks different? Maybe they care in historic Farmington. They want it all to look the same because that's the look and everything like that. But do they care in one of the neighborhoods that it's different things? I mean, I don't know, you know, and
But that, something like that could be additive to the, so if we decided we liked a lot of the bones, like
Yeah.
you said, it's ambiguous, you know, on purpose almost, is what
Yeah.
it sounds like.
yeah,
But we could have some things that are additive, like if you are repairing your sidewalk, it needs to match each of your neighbors. In an instant where you have two neighbors with two different halves, you've got to directly communicate with Russ Arnold, and he'll tell you which. But something like, you gotta break the tie, or, you know, but I mean, something like that, where at least then we could say, you know, point people in the right direction. But I was gonna say exactly what you said is, who cares? Because if you have brand new, beautiful concrete, and then your sidewalk breaks, or sorry, if you have old concrete and a chunk of your sidewalks breaks, and you replace the part that's broken and next to two older parts of concrete, it still looks different. It's not the same. It's not uniform. So you have to take out the whole chunk. So to me, I think the idea is to have safe sidewalks. So if you have asphalt abutting concrete, but you don't have that 3/4 inch gap, got a sidewalk. I don't know.
That's the whole thing.
Because if it's your house, you're paying for it, you're doing whatever else. If you want to put pavers out there and they're gonna be smooth, God bless.
Right. Good luck maintaining that.
Yeah.
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 That's my whole thing. It's cost.
Yeah.
And I mean, $17 million. And I think if you were gonna survey people and ask if they would like us to spend $17 million on sidewalk repairs on personal people's property versus doing something else, and you named a bunch of different things. I think that you're gonna find
You're
that they're gonna want that done, and not the sidewalk.
Even if you said over a 10-year period, if we propose to spend $18 million to repair all current sidewalks, that's, you don't get a new sidewalk. Yay or nay, I would be very surprised if people were enthusiastic about the town paying.
But in reality, it's not. We're not gonna cost out or bond out Universal Center, Farmington Center, the things we've just done, so that number's gonna come down.
Yeah, it'll come down.
Even if that number was $2 million, right, a year. That's a lot of money.
Well, that's equivalent to what we do for paving, right?
Yeah.
We bond out like $2 million a year. Four.
For every couple of years.
Yeah, and then that's how much we can spend, yeah.
That, but still. That's not fine.
Well, and like with the road bond, you may not live on the street that gets repaved, but eventually you'll probably drive on the new road and you can see some benefit of it. If I live in an area with no sidewalks and we put sidewalks in the Highlands, am I gonna ever walk in on there's a chance I may never use those sidewalks. You will, but you know, like,
Why you don't need the sidewalk? I'm not the authority, I'm just saying it's the volume of traffic, people walk, the walking neighborhood. You don't have that volume, right? Walnut Farms, they put a sidewalk system in that neighborhood, they developed it to get to West District School. Same with part of Oak Ridge, ran that sidewalk over to, Stoneview. So people could access to the school, right? That's the main hub. It's the school, now it's the trail system. So that's where the sidewalks really are more intended to be in your center. And that's the more populated, densely populated areas. Route 4, for example, is a connector, right? You would have a sidewalk from the high school to Universal Center. And the biggest complaint we get is no high school connection to the rails to trails.
Because you have,
Having to go through the Highland neighborhood. But where do the kids practice? crew, baseball, soccer, becomes his need. So for kids, freshmen, sophomore, who aren't driving, they have access to walk, right? But we don't have that connection. So that's a big, that's part of that whole comment I made earlier is that union requiring center connection. That includes this piece here.
Right, and Russ, like we always talk about, it's not done because there's a reason. Like, and one of the things, you see the rails to trails at the Big Bird's Bridge. But how you could, if it was easy or it didn't cost a ton of money, how do you see people with their bikes climbing up the hill? There's no way to get yourself up there. And so because it's not far away, but you can't, how do you get them on that trail?
I mean, it's a separate issue. You can go right behind Rosewood. There's that little access point, right? Is that by Rosewood? Isn't there like a little sidewalk right there, and you can get up there? Yeah.
Fine. Well, I think we start where we said.
Yeah. So going forward, we are checking with what other towns are doing, continuing to see what they're doing as far as their enforcement and all that. Correct.
Yes.
And then crafting a simple narrative explaining what's going on with sidewalks right now with our current ordinance.
Right. We're thinking maybe at the next meeting, maybe have like a draft type of PowerPoint that kind of would show like what, just like an informational thing about our existing.
About the ordinance.
Yeah.
Next meeting is April something.
Did we have something?
We had a date for April, yeah.
Oh.
April, was it 8th?
I think it's the day after the town meeting.
8th at
It is
6
the
o'clock, April 8th at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll just see if this intern's interested in running around doing sidewalk
Is that
for me.
it's April 8th enough time for those couple pieces of homework because it's 2 weeks away. You guys we have town meeting.
Like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Look, yeah, I think I mean, the PowerPoint's not hard. It's like, once
Yeah.
you codify it, it's really
Okay.
just, it would be to look at it. And maybe by then we'll get some of the other towns would respond to say what they actually do for their sidewalks. And I could report if I can get the intern, and if not, we have to figure out how we're gonna do this inspection program.
Yeah.
Let's see where we're at.
I got the map for the first district. Thanks, Russ.
All right,
Okay.
I think that's it.
We gotta do a motion. To adjourn.
Sarah's on Garden Street.
Motion to adjourn, Brian. Good.
Second. All in favor?
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah.